name's Marissa, also known as Homemaking with Marissa. Today's video is going to be a little bit different than my usual content. I am going to be sharing 20 different things I learned during the year 2020. 2020 was a unbelievably taxing, challenging year for the vast majority of humans. And as a result, I think it's important to really take a moment, sit back and reflect on not only what went wrong this year, but also what went right and what we learned and how we were able to grow as people throughout the year. For me, it has vastly shifted my worldview. It's changed my priorities. I'm just going to take a little bit of time to go through the 20 different things that I personally learned this year. This video is probably going to be kind of long. I have a cup of tea. I would recommend getting something to drink. This particular tea, if you're interested, I always like to know what other people are drinking, is a Taylor's brand English breakfast tea. I just put oat milk in it, and that's how I like to drink it. The first thing that I learned this year is how to say no. I historically am awful at saying no. I am 100% a yes to everyone type person. I don't like to disappoint anyone. I just try to keep pushing and pushing and pushing and saying yes and saying yes and saying yes at the detriment of my own personal well-being. And this year I have had to get better at saying no. I would not be able to get everything accomplished that is asked of me and still have any level of personal sanity left. The second thing that I have learned this year is asking for help. This is an area that I wouldn't say has been problematic for me in the past. I've always been willing to ask for help, but this year I really needed to ask for help and lean on others and not feel like I need to be some sort of super mom or superhuman and do it all myself without any aid from others. It is important to know your limits and to know what you can do and what you can do well. And if you keep piling things on, you may be able to get it all done, but it's not going to be done with any level of proficiency. This year, I have really focused on ways to ask others for help if I feel like I need it. To go along with that, number 3 is saying yes when people offer help. I am notorious for saying, hey, can I help you with that? And oh, no, I got it, because I don't want to burden them, I don't want to inconvenience them, I don't want them to feel put out in any way. But I have learned this year, if somebody offers to help you, don't have too much pride to say yes. Accept help when it's given to you and embrace it with an open heart, an open mind, and gratitude for the fact that somebody is trying to aid you in some way to make your life a little bit easier. They're not asking without genuine intent. An example that I have, which seems so trivial, but my husband's grandmother has started ironing his clothes. And that is a task that I just did not want to do, and I didn't feel comfortable taking his stuff to a dry cleaner. So when she offered, I initially said no, and she offered again, and I had to reflect on the fact I didn't even know why I was telling her no, other than I guess maybe pride or not wanting to inconvenience her. But at the end of the day, if somebody is willing to take something off of my plate to make my life easier, and that's genuinely something that they want to do to feel like they're providing help to you, you shouldn't have too much pride to just say yes. Number 4 is to know your family's love languages. I have read the 5 love languages books for adults and for children, and I think that everybody feels a little bit depleted this year, and it is important to know what your immediate family members' love languages are so that you can try to do things to fill their tanks and to make them feel loved and to make them feel appreciated in a world that might have them feeling a little bit beat down and drained. The fifth thing that I started doing this year is saying affirmations every night with my kids. I need to integrate saying affirmations to myself as well, but for now, every night before my children go to bed, we say a series of affirmations. It's the same thing every night, and it has gotten to the point where they look forward to it, they get excited, and I hope that as they grow and as they get older, they will not only say them as something that's just a repetitive part of their evening routine, but say those things because they believe them and they have said it with such regularity that it becomes embedded in part of who they are, and they take ownership of that, and they really feel a sense of pride in themselves. Number 6 is that we do not need to be running around all the time. I have always been the parent who puts their kids in multiple activities. They're playing a sport every season, they're playing a musical instrument, they're doing swim lessons, they're in after school clubs. I sign them up for every activity available, and I just run around like a crazy person, bouncing between activity after activity after activity all day. And at the end of the day, the kids would be exhausted, they'd be grumpy. And while when things go back to normal, we will reintegrate some of those things, I don't know that I could ever go back to that constant rat race of just bouncing from activity to activity to activity. And we have really learned a value in just slowing down our life and being home and being content with just being here. Number 7 is that I can't figure out technology. I have really had to overcome that mindset this year. All of our schooling is on technology. My job is all 100% online now, and I started a YouTube channel this year. One of the main reasons why I didn't start a YouTube channel for so long is because I was so worried I wouldn't be able to figure out how all the technology works. Before I started a YouTube channel, I had literally never posted a story on Instagram, on Facebook. I didn't even know how to post a story, let alone how to record a video, how to edit a video, how to insert text in a video, how to do voiceovers. There's so much tech, how to create thumbnails. There's all this technology that happens with YouTube that I just was so convinced that I wasn't going to be able to figure it out. And at the beginning of this year, I just decided that I was no longer going to use that as an excuse, and I was going to force myself outside of my comfort zone to break through the mindset that I couldn't handle figuring out new technology. And clearly this video made it on the internet, so I figured it out. Number 8 is pertaining to mental health. I haven't ever talked about this on this channel before. I have had terrible anxiety my entire adult life. I was on medication in my early 20s, I went off of medication, and for about a decade had the mindset that I didn't need medication, and if I just did more yoga and drank more water and got more sleep and had a green smoothie, that all my problems would be magically cured and I would no longer have to deal with anxiety issues. This year, I decided to go back on medication for anxiety and break over that feeling of feeling like somehow I am just not a strong enough person. I don't have enough willpower. I don't have enough positive mental dialogue to be able to overcome it, and just concede to the fact that there is no shame in having to be on anxiety medication. There's just no shame with it, and it shouldn't be something that I choose to have this high level of pride about and feel like somehow I'm superior because I didn't need to rely on a medication. Now, I'm not a doctor, obviously, and I'm not giving anybody any medical recommendations other than if you deal with anxiety, to not let pride get the best of you with seeking out medical aid with anxiety. To go along with that is number 9. I started doing yoga this year, and I had set a goal that I was going to do yoga every day for 30 days. And I did yoga every day from January 1st until March 18th, which is when COVID hit in my area and everything started shutting down and the kids were getting sent home from school. So I quit doing yoga until about a week ago. And I have noticed that while yoga is not a cure-all for me, it really does help with the way that I feel physically, the way that I feel mentally, and as a wife and a mother, an employee, I have found that I could easily get into the excuse of not having enough time to incorporate this into my schedule, but I've really learned that I don't have enough time not to incorporate this into my schedule. It has to be a priority, and it needs to be something that is done when my house is quiet. So if that means that I need to wake up before my family, then I need to wake up before my family, because I just feel better when that is regularly integrated into my routine. Number 10 is something that I heard from a friend. She was talking about setting up a Christmas tree really early. And I feel like maybe this year in particular, people haven't latched on so much as there's a too early to decorate for Christmas. But I've always been one to decorate really early for Christmas. And in my personal life have received some judgment from not being too hasty and not enjoying all of the seasons, just trying to skip right over Thanksgiving. And she said to me, if it brings you joy and it doesn't cause harm to someone else, you should do it. And that just set off a light bulb that, you know what, if I want to decorate in September for Christmas, if I want to put up my tree and it brings me joy and it brings my family joy and it's not causing harm to anyone else, I'm probably just going to do it. And I'm not going to worry about what anybody else thinks or what anyone else says, because at the end of the day, it's not harming them and it's bringing me joy. Number 11 is that kids do not need to know everything. I have made a lot of videos about entertaining your kids during COVID and virtual learning. And I don't remember which video it was, but it might have been a tag video. But my greatest fear at the beginning of all of this is that my children were going to be scared, and that when they grow up, this will be something that they talk about as an adult and inquire about how the situation was handled in their household. And I did not want my kids to have really negative associations with this period of time in their life. And I felt like for the younger kids, the most important way that I could try to alleviate that was not to give them too much information and to not let it be a running dialogue in our house all the time where it was the only thing that we talked about. Oh, I don't even know if my kids know what the word COVID is at this point. I have a teenage son, obviously he does. He's very well aware of what's going on. But the younger kids, I don't know that they know what COVID, coronavirus, pandemic, any of those phrases, I don't think that they are familiar with, because it isn't just a constant dialogue in our house where we are scaring them. Oh, this year more than ever, and I've always been pretty steadfast in not giving too much information, but particularly this year. Number 12 is the importance of having a budget. I have always been a financial nerd. I have always budgeted, and that's been a monthly component of my life. I have realized this year in particular how unbelievably unbelievably valuable that is. At one point, I didn't know if I was going to have to quit my job. I didn't know if working from home was going to be an option, but I was able to look at our budget and decide pretty quickly whether or not that was something that monetarily we could even afford for me to do if push came to shove. Now, fortunately, I didn't have to leave my job, but having a budget and being able to look back over month after month, year after year, and reflect on what you spend and where you can cut is unbelievably valuable. Number 13 is an extension of the budget, and it's the value on living on less than you make. My house, if you've watched any of my videos, my house is not very big. My house is not very glamorous. There's nothing special or spectacular about my house. But what is special and what is spectacular about my house is the mortgage payment in comparison to my income and the freedom that that affords my family. I would love to have a big, giant, beautiful home, but at the end of the day, the peace that I feel knowing that there would have to be some pretty crazy circumstances for me to not be able to afford my mortgage payment has provided so much peace during this year. Knowing that if something happened to us where we were sick and we couldn't go to work, or there was a job loss, that we weren't so extended in our bills that we would be immediately thrown into crisis mode, has really shown to me the value of the lifestyle that we have chosen and the amount of money that we are willing to lock up in recurring expenses. On a lighter note, number 14 is I learned about the 10-item wardrobe this year. I have followed Jennifer L. Scott, the Daily Connoisseur, here on YouTube for years. She's talked about her 10-item wardrobe for years. This year, I purchased her book, I read it, and I immediately dove into having a more minimalistic wardrobe, and it has been so unbelievably freeing. It has cut down on consumerism. It has cut down on the stress of not knowing what to wear. It has just really simplified my life and my morning, and I'll link all of her information down below if it's something that you're interested in. I'll try to remember to put a link to her book if it's something that you'd like to read. The 10-item, it's, for those of you that don't know, it's a capsule wardrobe concept. So you just have a more minimalistic number of clothing items, and I thought it was going to be really restrictive and limiting, and I was going to hate it, but I have found it to be the absolute polar opposite. Number 15 is also a concept that I took from her book, and she says that it is important to find joy in the mundane. As a housewife or homemaker, I have so many mundane tasks that I have to do. You know, there's no joy in doing the laundry. There's no joy in putting the dishes away. Or that was what I thought. That, you know, it just felt, I think that she says you should find joy and not treat it like drudgery. And that was the case. You know, I would just find myself being really resentful about all the things that I had to do. And I've really tried to shift my worldview and my perception of the tasks that I'm doing. It must be working, because my teenage son today told me that I liked doing the laundry. And I paused for a moment and I said, "What? No, nobody likes doing the laundry." And he said, "There's something about it that you enjoy." And well, I just had to reflect on the fact that, you know, maybe it's working, and maybe me trying to have a more joyous attitude about mundane tasks and not treat them like drudgery is starting to project to the rest of the family, and they are picking up on the fact that I am trying to be less of a downer about it and just find joy in the small things that I'm doing to help my home and help my family and help myself. Number 16 is to support your partner. And my husband and I have always been very good about this. We have very open lines of communication. I think that we have always been each other's biggest cheerleader and support system. But it's been a tough year for everybody. And I think that it's so valuable for your spouse to feel like they have somebody that they can confide in, that they can vent to, that they can lean on, that they can just feel uplifted and supported by. And my husband has done a fabulous job in the midst of all that has been thrown our way of making me feel this way. And I really am trying to replicate that. I would say that he is probably better at it than I am, but it's definitely an area for personal growth that I have found this year is so beneficial. Number 17 is YouTube. I started my YouTube channel this year. I started it literally right before COVID started, and I have learned so many things. Like I was saying earlier, I didn't know how to post a story on Instagram before this year. I didn't know how to upload a video, how to edit, any of that. And I have learned so much, and frankly, am unbelievably proud of myself that I was able to overcome that mental hurdle and stop making excuses and just do something that I thought was going to bring me joy and be a really fun, creative outlet. The other issue that I was worried about, so I was worried about the technology with starting YouTube. I was also very concerned about how my family and friends and acquaintances in my personal life would perceive what I was doing and the judgment that I would receive from them. Not that they would outwardly say it to me, but I was worried about being judged in my personal life. I didn't even share on my personal social media accounts that I had a YouTube channel until maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, very, very recently. And because of that, I was worried about being judged, and I decided, you know what, this is something that I enjoy, this is something that I am passionate about, and I'm not going to live in fear of being judged by others. To go along with that, I was equally concerned about how strangers would treat me and how I would be treated in the comments and people being unkind. I am not an outwardly emotional person, and if somebody hurts my feelings, they're oftentimes not going to even know that it happened because I'm not confrontational, but I am sensitive. Words of affirmation is my love language. So I was very worried that if people were mean, it was really going to affect me. And fortunately, I haven't dealt with a ton of that. I mean, periodically you'll get people who are just judgmental, just feel a need to give their 2 cents because you put it out there, so therefore they feel like they're able to tell you how poorly they think you're doing something. And I've heard that this is something that you could just get used to. The more people are mean to you, the more you just are able to brush it off. But that was really something that I had to overcome the fear of this year. And obviously I've posted more than 100 videos, so I was able to push through, and I will continue to have to work on that. I know it still affects me. Every time I get a mean comment, my husband will say, well, don't the positive comments outweigh the negative comments? And you know, he's right. They really do. I would say for every 30 positive comments, I get 1 negative comment. And you know, that's a pretty good ratio. So 18 goes in tandem to 17, and that is that kindness is the best gift that you can give anyone. Being kind and being genuinely kind, there is no greater gift. Just trying to boost somebody else for no personal gain, just to make them feel better and to make them feel seen and loved and appreciated, particularly on a year where people feel really isolated and people feel really alone. Kindness goes a long way. And I've tried to be better about just being kind to people. Number 19 is that self-care is not selfish. Self-care is something I think when you have young kids and you're just busy taking care of everybody else's needs all day long, day in and day out, that you can forget yourself, and it can almost feel selfish to do something that's just for you. And I haven't been stellar at this year, but I have really tried to implement more self-care into my daily life, to try to do something every day that is not for anyone except for me. And it doesn't have to take up a bunch of time. Yoga, in my opinion, is self-care. Doing an evening skincare routine is self-care. Going for a walk is self-care. Drinking a cup of tea is self-care. I have been journaling. I pulled it out here. I had this planner made. I just ordered it. I paid for this with my own money, but it has a daily schedule. It has to-do lists, it has habit tracking, it has a weekly meal plan, and it's all has goal setting, spot for notes, and it's all centralized in this little journal. And that may not be everybody's cup of tea. Not everybody is as type A as I am and likes to write everything down and have a list for every component of their life. But for me, having something like this is self-care. Going to bed every night knowing that I've planned out my next day makes me feel like I can tackle the next day. I can take on the world. I can handle anything that comes my direction. And probably my favorite part, I'm trying to find a page I haven't written in, is that you put your top 3 priorities for the week and then your top 3 most important tasks. I don't know if you can see this. Your top 3 most important tasks for the day. Now there's a whole to-do list here, and then on the weekly, there's a whole to-do list of different things that you could list out for the week, but having a way of just capturing, you know what, I have all these things I want to do, but these are the most important. And if I just do these 3 things, it was a successful day, has been beneficial for me. This book is really, I'll try to find. This is available, I think, in the US and the UK, but you can personalize it. So I was able to put my name on it, was able to put a quote at the bottom. This has been unbelievably beneficial for me. Number 20 has been to always be willing to learn. I have a tendency of not wanting to learn something new, hence why I'm not very good at technology. I don't particularly like to learn new things, but I have found that I never regret it when I get outside my comfort zone and I force myself to learn something new. That is going to conclude the video for today. If you have something that you have learned in 2020, go ahead and leave it in the comments down below. Would love to be able to connect with you guys better and see just what are the things that you have taken away from this year and you will be carrying with you into 2021. If you haven't done so already, you can subscribe to my channel by clicking on my face here. I will have an entire playlist of videos for you here, as well as an additional video for you here. I hope you're all staying happy and healthy. Bye.